Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
What's up, guys? It's your boy Andy. Real quick, just want to tell you about the sponsors that make the DeFi by Design podcast possible. First, we have 𝗷𝗶𝗴. 𝗷𝗶𝗴 is a non-custodial money market protocol where you can go and leverage your assets and earn interest. So you can go in there and deposit about 10 or 20 assets, ETH, any stable coins, wrap Bitcoin, a whole bunch link, and you can lend them and you can borrow tokens to go long, to go short, to earn interest. Head over to app.𝗷𝗶𝗴.com. Check it out. They have V2 is coming soon. Check out 𝗷𝗶𝗴. Next, we have DeFi. DeFi is a layer 2 gasless decentralized exchange on Ethereum. They use Starkware to conduct their trades on layer 2. The token 𝗵𝗵𝗃 has a liquidity mining scheme ongoing, and they have a bunch of cool stuff coming in. So if you want to trade on L2 in order books, not just swaps, check out DeFi. They're awesome. With that being said, let's get right back to the show. I hope you guys enjoy. And again, check out 𝗷𝗶𝗴 at app.𝗷𝗶𝗴.com and DeFi at @DeFi.com to lend and borrow and trade on L2. Cheers, guys. Hello. What's going on, gang? Welcome again to the DeFi by Design podcast. I'm here, of course, with the man, the myth, the legend, Robbie. We are chilling tonight. It's actually a little bit of a late one here, 10 p.m. in the Eastern Standard Time, and we are hanging out. Rob, how you feeling? How you feeling about the markets? What's going on?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. Everything's looking good as far as a price action standpoint. It seems like TVL is ramping up a little bit, so we're going to talk a little bit about that with Alpha Finance and our good friend Tascha that we have on today. And yeah, overall, away from prices, everyone is still building. Protocols are integrating. I'm sure everyone's seen the 𝗀 additions, which we will talk about as well. So I'll pass it over to Tascha. Tascha, how are you doing in morning, the AM over in Thailand?
Thank you. Definitely a global market. And thanks for having me on. Definitely a really, really exciting time for Alpha. We just launched a number of, partnerships and also added a lot of pools. When we first started, there were only 5 pools on 𝗵𝗶𝗴, and now there are, so that's a lot of things happening in November, definitely.
Yeah, shipping and dripping, baby.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a meme going around of the Bitcoin versus Ethereum. I mean, it's actually a source of a heated debate. It's like, okay, so you've got Bitcoin, which will never change, has no improvements, can't agree on anything. And you've got Ethereum and application layers, shipping and dripping products left and right. It's pretty funny. And I'm not even in Ethereum, but it's honestly great to see the level of push that, some of these protocols have been able to pull off.
I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's the composability along with just the enthusiasm around the Ethereum community. And Tascha, I'm sure you can speak more on that as far as what you've seen in Ethereum and just in the recent partnership, that composability between Alpha and 𝗷𝗶𝗴.
Yeah, I think, the fact that it's composable, that makes it so much more scalable and efficient. 𝗵𝗆𝗃 itself builds on top of Uniswap and SushiSwap, right? So that already is the foundation of our product. And especially with the recent partnership and integration with 𝗷𝗶𝗴, what we did is pretty much that we saw how there is a gap between the interest rate you earn on ETH on Alpha 𝗵𝗆𝗃 and the borrow interest rate you have to pay on ETH on 𝗷𝗶𝗴. So right now, if you just borrow the ETH from 𝗷𝗶𝗴, you're paying 1%. And if you lend it on Alpha 𝗵𝗆𝗃 at this moment, you're getting 25%. So technically, you're gaming on that ARB, that difference, and we just make it so simple for our users. And 3 simple steps you can already gain from that difference, and also gain from the assets that you lend on 𝗷𝗶𝗴. So yeah, I think this composability factor makes it so much easier and faster to ship and integrate with other projects, and also move the DeFi space and create the design space that's even more innovative than before.
Yeah, and I mean, when you see an opportunity like that, and it's right there and available, an integration and a way to work together simply makes sense. And it's easier to do right now, like you were saying, than either in other industries or in other situations. But in that situation, I mean, that seems to be like a win-win. So talk us through kind of what you're thinking on 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 side. So if I'm new to 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 and to 𝗵𝗶, right, where can 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 fit into the DeFi ecosystem, and what are we solving with the leverage yield farming, the ability to have pools with liquidity, earning APYs? I'm curious as to what you see on your vision of kind of like what alpha can fulfill. And kind of like how you can show that to somebody who might be new to the space, if you will.
Yeah. So let me break my answer into two parts. So 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 itself solves a number of problems and gaps in the space. The second part will touch upon more of Alpha Finance Lab as a whole, because 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 is only one of our products. And then the second part pretty much is gonna show you more of what we're really achieving with a number of products that we're building. So for 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 itself, what we saw as a market gaps are a number of things. First, we saw that there are a lot of ETH holders, and these ETH holders are getting very low interest rate on ETH. And I'm sure if you ask any ETH holder, they're not going to say, yeah, they want low interest rate on ETH. So that is itself already one huge market gap that we can tap. And if we are able to generate the highest lending interest rate on ETH without having our users to bear other risks apart from lending their ETH, then that's already, one huge opportunity for us. The second thing that 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 addresses is also the fact that we notice how a lot of the yields are coming down, but the yield farmers themselves are actually looking to increase their APY still, because they are used to the 4 digits yields that they were used to back in summer. So when we match the two, we are seeing this huge adoption of 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. A lot of leveraged yield farmers or even leveraged liquidity providers, they are willing to pay that borrow interest rate on ETH because they are getting more returns from leveraging their yield farming positions. And on the other hand, the ETH lenders also benefit from earning higher lending interest rate on ETH, and in fact, highest in the market right now is coming from 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. So that's more on 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 and what we're solving. But of course, it's one of our products, and Alpha Finance Lab itself, you can think of us as a cross-chain DeFi lab. What that means is we're building a number of DeFi products on multiple chains, and each particular DeFi product will solve its own problems, right? But what we're doing is we're also bringing synergy across our own alpha products so that they will not only capture its own market, but they will also help each other and grow alpha ecosystem even further. So to speak a bit onto that, our next product, which is coming up, is Perpetual Swap product. So Perpetual Swap is a product that you can take a leveraged long or short of any asset without having to actually have that asset. So if you just have USDT, you can actually enter into a leveraged 10x long position of BTC, and you would gain or lose according to how the BTC price moves, right? So what we see here is that the Perpetual Swap product would benefit 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 because those who are taking leverage on 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 and quote unquote like shorting ETH, they're exposed to the short of ETH impact. What they can do is they can actually open the opposite leveraged long on ETH position on Perpetual Swap product. And as a result, they are actually minimizing the downside exposure while maximizing the returns on 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. So that's, the actual overarching theme we're going for, because we think the ideal financial product suite is something that can generate high yields, high returns for users while offering a way to minimize the downside exposure.
And the perpetual swap integration is a great way to get a hedging opportunity for any trader because, as you said, your main customer, main user on the platform is someone looking for high yield. So they're lending out their assets, they're looking for leverage, and then of course there needs to be some hedging opportunities along with that. And there's a lot to unpack in the answer that you just gave as far as what 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 is, what you have planned for the future. I'm curious, I actually have a couple questions on kind of the description you just gave, but the most timely one, I think, is the launch of Ethereum 2.0. And if you think that we're going to see substantial outflow of Ethereum out of DeFi into the beacon chain on Ethereum to claim staking rewards, and how you think that might affect 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 TVL and any other functionality.
I think that that's a good question. In my opinion, I think Ethereum 2.0 will be several years away, because Ethereum infrastructure itself is really massive, and to migrate that to 2.0, it really needs a lot of time and capital to ensure the security process, right? So, in my opinion, I think it will be several years out still. I think this is a great first step for Ethereum, and also for, applications built on Ethereum, so we can all benefit from the Ethereum 2.0 scalability solution in the future. But I think I still believe that it will be some times out. So that means that, even 1 year in DeFi is a really, really long time. So I think next year will be really interesting. What we are going to see is we're going to see DeFi expanding beyond Ethereum. So I think that will also come in play in the DeFi space.
Yeah, and even included in that time frame, what we'll see is a continuous desire for more yield. People come to alpha, people go to farm, people go and do borrowing and lending on platforms because they're after making more money. That's the consistent thing that we can count on. So when there's yield available, right, whether it's with ETH staking or with alpha or with other chains or with even meme food coins, we saw, now maybe if that happened again, it'd be a little different, but we saw that people are after yield, and that's what creates like everything that's ongoing. And so, yeah, I mean, with that said, have you thought about the difference between short-term yield and long-term yield? And like, obviously it's pretty straightforward, but the short-term yield is obviously what people are after right now in the short term, right? Like, I want to make some good quick money on APYs. And then obviously the long-term yield is the same thing, but wait, I want to hold a token for an extended amount of time. So I'm curious kind of like what your thoughts on like short-term versus long-term yield are, like just like as a whole. And, if you're trying to integrate that with alpha, like that's great, how, or have you seen that example in like other projects? Just because I think that there's a interesting trend ongoing, and it kind of goes to what you said, like 1 year in DeFi is a long time. So how can we get people incentivized or wanting to, be active participants for over that time? So I'm curious, and I'm rambling a bit here, but short-term versus long-term yields, like how do we as a community, handle this? What do you think about the difference? And, even tying it into alpha, like how could you make people want to farm for a long time or want to hold the token and really earn that longer-term yield?
Good question. I think that a lot of people in the industry can see yield farming as something short term. I think of it as multiple angles though. So yield farming itself, while it can be short term, you can use it as a short term instrument, earning APY and whatnot. But if you look in the future or even in the past, you can see that there are a number of projects that are coming up, almost every week, right? And these projects, when they come up, they would need to bootstrap their liquidity in whichever AMM pools. So when that is the case, then that means that we are ready to capture those opportunities as well. Even though a lot of the opportunities now are more on the short term, but I think we can innovate and capture more of the upcoming yield farming opportunities that are going to launch with newer projects, maybe with newer ways that these new amazing projects come up with. So we would help and capture that gap. Another point on the long-term yields that you mentioned that I think it's something that's really interesting is more on, the growth of usage of the governance token itself. So I think right now people are yield farming and thinking more on the short term because there are not much usages on the governance token itself, apart from, selling and earning that gains, or they can use for voting for sure. But in the future, as each project continues to grow and build more usages of these governance tokens, that can also bring in more of the long-term mindset into, earning these tokens. So maybe in the future, we are going to see that people are doing this yield farming, not to earn yields, but to aggregate these governance tokens to do more other usages that these tokens
future
have.
cash flows and dividends.
Yeah.
There could be an assortment of upgrades and improvements over time. And I mean, it takes a community to get behind that and a team to kind of lead that and be like, this is something that we could work on for years, and grow and really have our holders be a part of something that continually gets better. And that's a really cool aspect of like the shareholder way that fair launches and like the farming kind of aspect creates in DeFi. I like that. That sounds good.
Yeah, I think especially when you mentioned the fair launch, I think that narrative is something that resembles a lot with the users in DeFi this year. And I think we're going to see more of that going forward too.
Yeah, and it all starts with community. And Andy and I were talking earlier before we hopped on the podcast, and we said in the most recent weeks, even since Alpha started yield farming just a couple weeks ago, the coin has just gone up exponentially, like 10x from the launch. And we're curious how difficult it is to build a substantial or sustainable community when the token has already gone up so much. You can expect some selling pressure when a coin really increases in value, but is there ways that Alpha plans on really getting their community to stick around if DeFi does have a turn down? I'm sure with the most recent runs up, there will be another DeFi winter. How does Alpha really plan on sustaining that community and getting people to build and continue to farm and yield and develop Alpha even through those tougher times?
Yeah, and real quick, Tascha, I just want to add on my 2 cents, just to, like that answers. One thing that Alpha has done well, that like 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 has just every time that there's new projects, as Tascha was saying, like they're able to like bootstrap and help grow their liquidity. So it kind of keeps 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 kind of relevant always, if you will. That's one quick little just boom idea that I just had off Tascha saying it, and I think that can help keep the community around, Rob. Like I think that concept, I'll let Tascha explain way more. But yeah, no, I think like that kind of element, it kind of keeps people in the loop almost.
I think there are multiple ways that we're doing and also thinking of approaching this, and of course, DeFi winter will come sooner or later. The first way which we are approaching this is pretty much the fact that we're working really hard, a lot of new products, and the industry knows that we're doing that, right? Already attracts a number of strong builders to join our community. Andre, is one of the example, 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵, and we are talking on a daily basis, bouncing different ideas, how we can build these several things together. How will it be benefiting to Yearn? How will it benefit Alpha Finance, right? So the fact that we're showing this stance that we're, serious builders in the space, that also attracts the similar, level of builders to join our community. So during the DeFi winter, I'm sure these builders will really stick around and power through together. The second thing that we are doing is like Andy was saying, that we're expanding to other communities by finding an angle to benefit their community while benefiting our products or project. So what we're doing with Aave is an example. The earn on Aave plus ETH. What Aave is getting is pretty much more people lending on Aave, right? And that's what they want. Another thing that Aave is getting is also people borrowing ETH from Aave. So as a result, generating more utility of ETH lent on Aave. What we're getting is also more liquidity on 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. So the leveraged yield farmers have more liquidity to take leverage off. So I think as we continue to do this with more and more projects, we're gonna also build a bigger community and also retain them through the winter times. And the last point that I want to make is also on the token usages. So even though right now it's governance token, but as we continue to grow our product usage and also build more products, more utility will come. For instance, so the really basic one is security token, right? So if you stake the token to ensure the security of the protocol, then you earn like a percentage of the trading fees or the protocol fees. So that is coming up. It's just a matter of time of when we think it's best to launch that. Another usage that we're thinking of is also something that we name it ourselves. It's work token. What that means is that let's say if you hold alpha, you can use our product better than if you were to not hold it. For instance, if you were to take a leverage position on 𝗶𝗵, if you hold alpha, you can actually open a position of more than 2.5x, which is the maximum right now on 𝗶𝗵. So that is something that we have in our plan, but it's just a matter of time of when is the best time to launch these utility.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's always going to be a matter of implementing those features and listening to the market and seeing what people are demanding from the market and how that can benefit each of the protocols independently. But that also goes to the composability, where actually end up benefiting the whole ecosystem and multiple protocols end up benefiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a common goal of the Ethereum community. I mean, everyone has their own inner ego and inner desire to win and make a bunch of money and whatnot. I mean, that's just like a thing of human nature. Almost some people it's amplified than other people. But basically, yeah, like that was one thing that just kind of took me as a really cool thing to have like in a community. It's really interesting to see the way that these protocols can collaborate, but also just I feel like the way that generally people think. It's a very zero-sum game, especially when you incorporate any sort of leverage like Tascha does. Like it is a zero-sum game in the markets, but it almost never feels like that with the Ethereum community.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're going to see more of that. And hopefully we're going to see more of this in other chains and, L2 as well. I think on a really long-term viewpoint, I really believe, DeFi should expand beyond Ethereum. I think Ethereum is going to be the really big component of it for sure. But if we're looking to expand this further and really onboarding more people to DeFi, I think it has to expand to multiple chains.
Could you expand on maybe why that's the case? What do you see in other chains other than Ethereum that provide some more capability for alpha and DeFi as a whole?
Mm-hmm. So I think it may be less on the functionality itself, but I think it's more of the fact. For instance, right, like Binance Smart Chain, which is what we're going to build the perpetual swap product on, in addition to on Ethereum. The reason that we are doing that is because we think the Binance Smart Chain has their own Binance users. And that is already a huge group of users and demand that we can onboard to DeFi. And if we are able to capture that demand, then we can grow DeFi even further. Even though the base layer acts pretty similar, but it's more of the community that Ethereum has been building versus the community that maybe, let's say in this case, Binance or other chains has been building. So as a result, if we can combine all of those and pretty much bring them on to DeFi, then I think that will benefit not only their ecosystem, but also Ethereum ecosystem, because there are going to be more flow of money across those multiple chains and benefit more usages of the DeFi protocols on Ethereum too.
One angle as well is the fact that with more protocols, there's more decentralization. With over-reliance on Ethereum comes a harsh conflict and downfall one day. But without an over-reliance and the ability to have options, any sort of Black Thursday through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday event would go out of the window almost, because you have all these options and different backups. And I like that aspect a lot. As much as I support Ethereum and Bitcoin and the communities, yeah, it would almost be silly not to try to explore it elsewhere. Especially on Binance Chain, or I don't know. From what I've heard, Cosmos and Polkadot. I mean, I definitely done quite a bit of research on Cosmos, and they have quite a few projects on their blockchain. I'm not sure if they're going to be a leading contender with Polkadot and Binance Smart Chain, or if we'll see a few more new ones pop up that'll be really take them by the horns. Because right now, I mean, there are Ethereum competitors, but there hasn't been any that have been like everyone have been actually impressed by yet, almost.
Yeah, they do seem to be creating their own niche, though. I've done some research and some development work on Solana, and it has its benefits. Solana and some of the other chains might seem to be focused more on gaming rather than finance, and we could start to see these niches kind of develop more fully. And Tascha, you might be seeing this, you're working at the ground level and implementing these different protocols. Have you started to see some particular areas where certain chains are really excelling, maybe past Ethereum even?
No. So I think not yet. And I think...
Well, then, which ones suck?
Well, you can't pretty much judge or take a conclusion right now because it's a long journey. And I'm sure there are a lot of plans coming up for each, all of these different chains and L2. But I think it's more of, 2020 has been the year that they have been building their base layer and also onboarding a number of projects. But I think what I think is going to be really interesting is going to be the next year where a number of these chains are starting to get adoption and also different L2 solutions are coming to live. So I think the landscape will look very different, this time next year again.
Yeah, and kind of extending that timeline, going down a couple years, I've heard Vitalik mention that really at the end of the day, DeFi is one of the applications of Ethereum, but really in the long run, it's not that any interest rates can be any higher than what we're seeing in fiat markets. And I've kind of went back and forth on that idea. If there is some new value creation because of all the composability, or if it really just boils down to the interest rates that we see in traditional markets. So I'm curious your thoughts, and if you think the DeFi ecosystem, the whole digital asset ecosystem is poised for a merger with the fiat, really the existing economy, or if it's more poised for some sort of revolution over that, or if there's no interaction at all and it's going to continue to be separate.
Yeah. What's your ideology? Yeah. Are you a revolutionary? Are you like a envisionary collaborator, or are you a full anarchist, or are you a regulatory acceptor? Like how do you feel about all that kind of stuff?
I feel that, we are just ready for them to adopt and regulate. We're all just waiting for the regulatory to catch up, right? And I think when that happens, we're going to see DeFi and traditional finance slowly merging. I think before we get to that point, which is going to be a long time, it's going to be, two separate worlds. And that's mainly because of the regulatory issues and each government is taking different approach, while versus, the blockchain and decentralized space where everyone is on the same page, as opposed to, in traditional finance where each government and each, ministry has their own way of thinking. So I think for them to come to be on the same page will take a long time, and to really adopt DeFi will be a long time. But I think what is going to be, the new innovation in DeFi is pretty much more on how DeFi would fit into up and coming niche areas of applications on blockchain. So for instance, like NFT is something that I think has a lot of value in it, and is something that hasn't got a lot of attention yet. But if in the future, when NFT becomes more fungible, ironically, when even though the name is non-fungible token, but I think the value will really unlock when these tokens become more fungible, and you can actually use these tokens in DeFi. So pretty much, the artistic value, the value of different pieces on, in the game, you can actually use that as collateral in DeFi and pretty much earn from those NFT tokens. And I think, as we continue to wait for the traditional finance and governments to catch up and pretty much, adopt DeFi, I think in the meantime, we're going to see DeFi expanding and integrating with these coming niche areas on blockchain.
Yep. And it is early, but we are starting to see those products evolve. If you're familiar with Rope or Axie Infinity, they're providing yield farming on NFTs, which is a very interesting concept. But it continues with the original value proposition of DeFi, which is taking assets and making them productive. which I think is pretty much at the core of DeFi. And they're continuing on that goal. And the other thing about NFTs that you mentioned, to me, NFTs are the first step to digital identity, which has been tried in the past, but it seems like NFTs are really the enabler for that. And when I was first introduced to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and Ethereum, I mean, that idea was present in my mind from the start, where we don't need a social security number and these medical records and a driver's license and all these documents to keep track of. You know, why can't we just have them all in a barcode that we have access to, where it's easily accessible, and if someone needs to get rushed to the hospital, they don't need to wait on the medical records that they might have had a week prior when they first experienced the condition. It's all easily transactable and movable. And to me, NFTs really unlock that possibility. I'm not sure if you see things similarly.
Yeah, to me, it's just a bunch of memes on digital art that it seems like you can just sell a bunch and make a bunch of money if you have a lot of followers.
And that's the give and take. Is no, there's possibilities, but
yeah, well,
right,
that's the current stage. That's the current stage of like where we're at. But like your vision is on point. I think it's like it makes sense, but it's just funny that like right now NFTs are simply a meme for art, but like artists are starting to actually have them. And like there's a guy that I follow on Instagram, actually. His name's 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. Weirdest political anime photos, like gory, just hardcore weird shit. And they launched their own store on Rarible. Did a huge sale there. They have a few 100K on Instagram. You know, they made a bunch of Ethereum. It was just kind of crazy to see it happen like real time. It was cool. I mean, I don't know. Tascha, do you actually see where you could integrate NFTs with the alpha token, or with the platform right now to like make it more valuable to users? Like, do you actually see like a possibility there in the current state, or like is it more like a future thing, as you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's more of a future thing for us. I think it's something that we are excited about, and we're watching it closely and making sure that when it's ready, we will find a way to integrate with the NFT area.
So if you had to give me one idea for what you think like the one of the best use cases for NFT in the current space would be, like, what do you think, aside from art, of course?
That's tough. I mean, I think what 𝗪𝗧 is doing is really interesting in terms of how you can earn cash flow from this piece of land on the game, and pretty much use that to measure the value of that NFT token. So I think that itself is I think it's interesting, because technically with NFT nature itself, each token isn't that comparable to the other, so it's harder to know what's the real value of each token. But now that you have this standard of cash flows that you can compare it among different tokens, then you can have a way to actually measure what each token is worth. And I think that's the good first step to pretty much making these tokens more fungible, and in the future bring more use cases outside of NFT, beyond NFT, and also enter to DeFi space.
Gotcha. Yeah. And bringing it back to alpha, we talked about kind of down the road some of the products that you plan on launching with the perpetual swaps, and well, maybe even NFTs after this podcast. Hopefully we gave you some ideas. Is there anything else that you have on the horizon that you want to tell the audience about? Upcoming partnerships, major updates coming up, integrations that you're excited about?
Yeah, we also have 𝗹𝗶𝗵𝗵 V2 coming up. We haven't come up with a name, but that's also coming up, and we will continue to share more in terms of the details, not only about the perpetual swap product, but also about this 𝗹𝗶𝗵𝗵 V2 that will be pretty exciting for us.
Nice. That's pretty dope. 𝗹𝗲's got a V2 coming out soon as well. V2 just sounds so like kind of mystical. Like, oh yeah, we got V2 coming out. Is there going to be a tokenomics upgrade for the alpha token? That was one of the biggest questions from the poll that got 50% of the votes.
Oh,
Was
wow.
on the yeah, right. Not a surprise, huh? Yeah, we're totally in it for the tech, guys.
Yeah, definitely there's going to be. So when we launch perpetual swap product, there are going to be more usages of alpha token on that product itself. And as we continue to grow 𝗹𝗶𝗴𝗵, be it V1 or V2, once we grow more adoption and usage of 𝗹𝗶𝗴𝗵, then that's when we're going to bake in more alpha usages and tokenomics on 𝗹𝗶𝗴𝗵.
Yeah. Governance would be a quick and easy. Well, not, I mean, quick and easy is the complete opposite, but like, yeah, it would. That's definitely a use case that will shine more lights, for what's more to come. But yeah, like the cash flows and the dividends upgrade. It's a constant process. You can do all sorts of vesting rewards, right, with the short term and long term yields. It is truly a art and a science to create a token that masterfully grows in value. Y'all have done it so far up to this point, so congrats. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck on the continuous push there. 15% of the audience wants to know, Tascha, what is your biggest goal?
Wow.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. Maybe just a few visions or a few goals that you have or something that you think of.
Yeah, I mean, I am very interested in finance, and I myself came from traditional finance. So my vision is pretty much, be someone or through Alpha Finance Lab, innovate the traditional finance realm. Hopefully we'll see that sooner as opposed to later, and pretty much unlock this financial access to more and more people, especially in developing countries, which is where I'm from, like Thailand. I think there are going to be a lot of benefits that will bring beyond, DeFi users, but to traditional finance users.
And we are kind of running close on time here, so we'll probably wrap it up in a couple minutes. But some current news that happened today, and I'm curious on your thoughts. If you've heard about the bill that was proposed in the U.S., so maybe it doesn't have as much impact on the global market, to regulate all the stable coins and force stablecoin issuers to get a bank charter and FDIC insurance. If you think that it has any merit, any traction that'll gain, or if you think it's just some haters happening in Congress from no coiners that really just want to see things get torn down.
I think I mean, the good thing of that is, this means that the government and the big institutional players are really, really taking a look at what we're doing. And I think that means, we're on track to something really, really big. Of course, I may not agree with how they're doing it, but I think the fact that they're showing that this is something, that they are actually scared of, in a sense of, growing their financial system and making sure they regulate this. I think there can be different ways that they can do it better. And hopefully, DeFi and crypto and blockchain space community overall can work together and making sure that it moves towards the direction that we all want it to be, as opposed to the direction that the governments want it to be. So I think it's going to be an iterative process. Not sure how much power we all have to debate against them. It's something that we all, as an aggregate community, can work together.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we are humans on this earth together trying to create harmony at the very core level. So for us to even consider either side to try to go at this with a hostile attitude would simply be futile. Like, it just wouldn't make sense. There is only collaboration to be had because, I mean, ultimately, sacrificing a bit of what we might believe to be DeFi or decentralized for what that's worth on their end and on the regulatory body, like, as you said, like it's an ability of having them to kind of come and meet us in the middle a bit, and like we're gonna have to work with them, as we can. I kind of see all this as like great news. Like I don't know how the market might react, but I see it as generally like speaking, pretty good news.
Yeah, and Tascha mentioned that it shows that governments, big institutions are taking things seriously. Where before, in the 2013 run, it was really like, what is Bitcoin? No one's really heard of it. It's just this thing that's coming out into the arena. And in 2017, that was still the case, but it was more for not just the finance and tech oriented personnel. It started to reach the masses, but it was still like, what is Bitcoin? What can we do with it? Where is it going? Now things are different. And Andy, you mentioned this in a past podcast where the sentiment doesn't seem to be, what is Bitcoin? Now it seems to be, all right, well, people are somewhat familiar with it. Now it's really about pushing the limits of where things can go.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Tascha and 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵, along with the rest of DeFi, are absolutely pushing the limits, as best as possible. And I'm sure Tascha sometimes probably feels this way. Like, I mean, being at the cutting edge of a groundbreaking, debatably regulatory arbitraging global mass of trustlessness is, I don't know. It really puts you to bed with a lot of thoughts in your head at night. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of things keeping me up at night for sure.
It happens. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, in the next month, things will just be even crazier. And I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, but that's one of the best parts of being here, being in this industry, is just, being able to wake up and have no clue what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. Well, Tascha, that is about all that I have for us today. Rob, how are you doing?
Yeah. This has been another super podcast. I'm super excited to see how Alpha continues to grow. Definitely going to be on the lookout for V2 as well as perpetual swaps. And maybe NFTs later down the road. Tascha, you have any parting thoughts?
No, I think this has been really, really great. And I think what you guys are doing, pretty much, spreading more of great podcasts, bringing more community to understand DeFi, to understand what's really going on in DeFi, as this space is really moving fast and it can be hard to, catch and stay up to date. So I think this is a great way we all work together and grow DeFi together.
Yeah, thank you. Because I mean, we really appreciate that. We put in time on this, and yeah, we're ultimately trying to do what we can to help the community as well, as we were saying about the Ethereum community, just the greater community as a whole. It's awesome. We appreciate your time, and we're glad that we can make time for this. And yeah, you have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the DeFi by Design podcast. Until next time, DeFi Slate Team.